As a high achiever, I always thought I had a discipline issue when I wouldn't feel like I was up to doing the task. But it wasn't. It was actually a capacity issue. I knew the difference between discipline and capacity in theory, but I wasn't recognizing the difference in my own life. You are listening to Anxious for Nothing with Dimpe, where together we overcome struggles with people-pleasing and perfectionism so that we can truly value ourselves and create time to progress in all areas of our lives. I'll be sharing with you my personal experience using agile IT systems for prioritization, especially when family, work, life, health, finances, and our faith all collide into one, and most importantly, how to affirm our faith and identity in Christ during the storm, not just after it passes. Join me. This is time management like you've never known it before. Let's get started. So glad to have you back after last week's amazing episode with Evelyn Amishere. She was amazing, wasn't she? If you are new here, I want you to check out last week's episode right after you finish listening to today's one. So today's episode, I want to share with you a light bulb moment I've had when I realized that my inability to get things done wasn't actually a discipline issue or a lack of time management or my inability to be organized or to prioritize or even procrastination, but it was actually down to a lack of capacity. I was maxed out and I didn't even realize it. Even though, I was going to bed on time, I was eating properly, exercising, doing all of those things, I was still feeling maxed out. And I'm going to go and explain even deeper about the impact of doing all of these things, going to bed on time, eating properly. I'm going to go a bit deeper in today's show about the impact of that later on. Like I said, I was completely maxed out. Then I came across a really interesting post by Dr. Raquel Martins, PhD, professor, scientist, clinical psychologist, also a TED Talk speaker. She speaks and advocates a lot about Black mental health issues. And she explained the difference between discipline and capacity in a way that really resonated with me. So full credit to her for just sparking this realization in me, because I hadn't seen or understood the difference. And I've not seen it explained or framed the way that she's done it before. So do you get those days when you feel like you can do everything, you have all the energies in the world, and then you're like, okay, where do I start? What do I do? And then because you don't know where to start, you just do 10 things or 4 things all at once. I have to be honest, I do get like that sometimes, especially when I'm in the luteal phase of my cycle. That's when I get my prioritization tool and just use that. You can download that for free. It helps me focus on what actually is going to move me forward and keep me progressing rather than keeping me busy. So let me tell you the story about the problem I had. So when I introduced agile IT systems into my life, that whole process of doing things, I found that I became so productive. And as a result, I had so much more capacity to do things. So all high achieving women like ourselves, what do we do when we find that we have more capacity, more space? What do we do? Come on, answer me. Right, exactly. We fill it with stuff. We get bigger ambitions, we get bigger goals, we get bigger things that we want to do. We just fill up that extra space. So that's what I did. But there are days when we do manage to do it, we're able to do all of those 10 things all in once in one go. And as a result of that gives us the belief that we can keep on adding more and more and more to our to-do list. So over time, I've just learned just not to get upset with myself when I don't complete my to-do list for the day, because I know what I'm like. So if I get my top 2 or 3 things done, do you know what? I'm fine with it, because I understand that I am ambitious and I like setting myself goals. That's just how I'm wired. However, I have learned also to be protective about my energy and create barriers so I don't physically or mentally burn out. But at one point, I found myself actually wanting to do these tasks, but not having the ability to do it. And I really struggled with that, because in my book, I had done all the right things. I'd ate properly, I was exercising, I was even monitoring my sleep. So I thought I was actually lacking discipline, because I didn't understand why all of a sudden I was just started becoming inconsistent. And this is where Dr. Martin's explanation really helped me. She really described the difference between discipline and capacity. And then I realized that I was actually confusing the two. So what is the difference? The way I understand it is like this. Discipline is like the power tool, the drill. And capacity is the supply, the electricity. The two go hand in hand. Without the electricity, the power tool, that is not working. So without capacity, your discipline is not going to function as effectively. So I discovered that I actually had a capacity issue. What I was trying to fix it with more discipline. And that only made my situation worse. Dr. Martin describes it like this. Discipline is about structure. It's about your ability to stay consistent with the choices that you've made. Whereas capacity, it's about your nervous system, your energy levels, and can you actually handle what needs to be achieved? So if we find ourselves exhausted, but still wanting to push through and get things done, even though your body is screaming at you, rest, then you're not lacking discipline. In fact, the fact that you are pushing despite the exhaustion is evidence that you are disciplined, but the problem is capacity. At this point, continuing to push yourself will only cause you to burn out. You're going straight down the road to burnout in that case. So Dr. Martin explains that discipline is like a muscle, whereas capacity is going to depend on things like, have you rested? Have you eaten properly? Have you slept well? So these are the things that I mentioned before. I've done all of those things, but then she also talks about processed emotions. Have you processed your emotions? I'm going to get onto that in a minute. And then she also talks about, have you recovered from stress? Because unprocessed emotions and stress, they impact your capacity. So whereas resting, eating properly, that's your physical capacity, your mental capacity is like the processed emotions and stress. So if you remember, I mentioned like my mum passed away in December 2021, and I spent all of 2022 doing absolutely nothing. All I did was watch K-dramas all day, C-dramas all day. I completely fell off, and I was binging it. Like I was binging these 23 episodes that are 50 minutes long over 3 days. I remember I'll start maybe 6 o'clock after I've finished work, and I'll still be watching it to the early hours of the morning. And then I'll be crying at myself because I only left myself 5 hours before I actually physically be at the desk and start working. So at the time I thought I had lost discipline, but actually I had lost capacity. Research from American Psychological Association shows that grief can significantly affect cognitive function, memory, energy, and decision-making. So grief literally reduces your mental and emotional capacity. So I was grieving at that time. So during that season, I'd learned to just, give myself grace. I'd realized that I wasn't procrastinating. It's just that my capacity had changed just due to grieving. Dr. Martins also explains the discipline side. So if you are constantly redoing your to-do list, planning endlessly, so you enjoy doing the planning, but never actually doing the work that creates progress, then that is a discipline issue. So in order for us to be consistent, we need to address the capacity issue first. Then using discipline, then we can use our discipline to make sure that we follow through and stay consistent. So let me put it another way. If you want to be consistent, you need to ensure that you have enough capacity, which is the fuel, to make sure that you stay disciplined. So you want to stay disciplined, but because you don't have the capacity that will fuel your discipline, you are now becoming inconsistent. So if you find yourself being inconsistent and you know that you're disciplined, you know that you're driven, check your nervous system, check your capacity. Is there emotions that you've not processed? Are you sleeping properly? Are you eating properly? Are you exercising? Check all of those things. And honestly, when I heard all of that, it made so much sense to me because I've known that I've always been disciplined, but I realized that, I weren't being consistent. And I found that really frustrating. When I realized that it was my capacity that was missing, it all fell into place. I mean, being a product owner, this is something that I actually debate with my Scrum Masters all the time. I mean, I would want 10 things done in a sprint. And then the Scrum Master, they'll be reminding me about the team's capacity. They're like, no, the team doesn't have capacity to all of these things being paid, So I clearly needed to apply that same thinking in my own personal life. So research also supports this concept. A Stanford University study on willpower and self-control found that decision fatigue and cognitive overload reduce our ability to follow through on disciplined behavior. Similarly, I think it's Drake's Dodson law in psychology shows that performance decreases when stress and workload exceeds over optimal capacity. So in other terms, too much pressure reduces effectiveness. So can you start to see the difference now between discipline and capacity? Is this something that you want to explore further so that you can make progress in all areas of your life without feeling like you're falling behind? Capacity is a huge part of prioritization. And once you understand your capacity, you can decide what you actually want to fit into your life at that any moment in time. And that's exactly what my prioritization tool helps you to do. It helps you to decide what you want to prioritize. So once you've understood your capacity, you can use my prioritization tool to know, okay, what am I going to fit in this space that's going to actually move me and progress me forward. So I've just shared my experience about recognizing the difference between capacity and discipline and why it's so important. Still to come is how we're going to overcome this challenge so that you can do the same. You've climbed the corporate ladder, reached the top, and realized that it's cost you more time and less life. I'm looking for driven women who are ready to build an online business in the travel industry, one that gives you real flexibility, more capacity, and a life that you don't need a holiday from. If that's you, the link is in the show notes. Let's talk about what's possible. So Dr. Martin explains capacity can be dealt with rest. I've talked about this before. Self-care. So for me, that was spas and K-dramas, recovering from burnout, supporting your nervous system, and reducing pressure. Whereas discipline can be addressed through reducing decision fatigue. So, the amount of decisions that you need to make, reduce it to just one thing. I use principles just to help me with that. Setting yourself clear goals. What is your goal? What do you want to achieve? Is it realistic? All of that sort of stuff. And I talked earlier in my earlier episodes, which I'll link in the show notes, about setting requirements for your life rather than goals. We need to make sure those requirements are really clear. Get yourself an accountability partner and also having really good structure. And with that understanding, I realized something, that my capacity actually changes from week to week. One of the things that I noticed now, which I've started doing, is I started syncing my activities to my cycle, because I found that I have lower energy when I'm in my winter phase. And so I just don't beat myself up now when I know that, okay, I'm coming into my winter phase now. My energy levels are going to be low. And because of that, I'm going to have low capacity. So instead of doing like high demanding tasks, I'll do like less physical demanding tasks in my case. So I might do something like organizing or planning. Then when my energy is higher, so I'm in my summer phase, that's when I might take on more physical tasks and use the extra capacity to do things like filming or batch cooking for the month. That's definitely something you can like check into and look as well. Match your capacity with your energy levels that you have, depending on what phase you're in during a monthly cycle. But one thing I do like to do is just maintain a baseline of capacity throughout. So how I do that is, walking every day, allowing myself to have downtime. So in the mornings, I have this quiet time where I just reflect and meditate and plan for the day. Like I give myself like my own personal, stand up with just myself, going through, okay, what worked, what didn't work, what might I achieve today, did I not get to achieve yesterday. And then, sometimes I do allow myself to just binge watch so I can just mentally switch off if I need to. Right now, I'm enjoying watching Flash on Amazon Prime. So also, when I now notice that I'm becoming inconsistent, I don't question my discipline anymore. Right now, I check my capacity, and that has helped me tremendously. So thank you so much, Dr. Martin. And another thing that you can do, which has helped me, I'm just going to chuck this out there as a bonus, is another strategy I use when my capacity is low, but I still want to be disciplined and get things fitted in, because us high achievers, everything must squeeze in, we must fit it in, it will fit. I learned from James Clear, Atomic Habits. He says reduce the scope, not the habit. So what does that mean? Like, let's say I wanted to do 30-minute exercise, and do you know what? The capacity is not there. I'm feeling like I need to do this. This hasn't happened. I just feel sluggish. The capacity is not there. Rather than doing 30 minutes, I'll reduce it. I'll reduce it to 10. Yeah. And if you got something that maybe you only like an example I can give again is when I had sciatica and I knew I needed to start walking again, but I was just too overwhelmed. I started to go out the house for like 2-minute walks, just go around the house, put my coat on, walk around the block and then come back. And then from that, I was able to build up from that and then finally get to running for 30 minutes. So, reduce the scope, but keep the schedule and keep the habit. So in summary, understanding the difference between discipline and capacity has changed how I approach my productivity. People often push themselves really, really hard when the real issue is that their capacity is depleted, not that you're procrastinating, not that you're lazy, and not that you're ill-disciplined. So rest, recovery, and energy management is so essential before discipline can actually work effectively. So my takeaway for you is, before you assume that you lack discipline, ask yourself, do I actually have the capacity to do this right now? So if this episode resonated with you, please subscribe, leave a review on the platform that you're listening on, and share this with somebody who you feel will actually benefit from hearing this. Thank you so much for your time, and I really appreciate it.
You want guilt-free time for yourself without sacrificing your peace of mind. I've been there and I get it. Visit www.anxiousfornothing.kit.com and get my free prioritization guide designed to help you create more time for what truly matters without sacrificing family, work, or your values. I want us to experience what it truly means to be anxious for nothing with more time, less pressure, and freedom from people pleasing. That's anxiousfornothing.kit.com for your free guide. Thank you for listening. I'm Bimpe, looking forward to seeing you next week. Remember, you are anxious for nothing, and when you win, everyone wins.